The millionaire's shocking rescue of a forgotten girl left on the road by her stepmom. The cold wind whipped through the golden Montana fields, rustling dead leaves like ghosts whispering secrets on a lonely, twisting country road. Julian Sinclair's sleek black SUV hummed quietly as he drove past the endless rows of bare trees, the mountains looming dark and silent in the distance. His world was usually so controlled, so emptied of surprises. But tonight, everything shifted in an instant. A flash of movement caught his eye. Something small huddled by the roadside under the dying light. Julian slammed the brakes, tires screeching against the cracked asphalt. His heart hammered as he jumped out, the chill cutting through his expensive coat. There she was, a tiny figure wrapped in a ratty jacket, dirt smudging her pale cheeks, shivering like a broken thing. "Hey," Julian said, his voice rough but gentle. The girl's eyes shot up at him, wide and wild, like she'd seen something. "Are you okay?" he asked, stepping closer. She didn't answer, just stared, her gaze flickering like she was reading into his skin, sensing the chaos buried beneath his calm. Julian's breath hitched. In her silence, he caught something strange. A faint pulse in the air, a shimmer like a secret someone was desperate to hide. Memories clawed at him, years spent bouncing through foster homes, feeling invisible, abandoned. This girl wasn't just lost in the woods. She was lost inside a storm. Without thinking, he scooped her up. Her body was fragile, freezing cold, yet inside burned a fierce spark. In that moment, Julian made a choice. Not just to save a stranger on some forgotten road, but to confront the shadows clawing at both their pasts. His mansion rose ahead, an enormous fortress of glittering glass and stone, all silence and cold grandeur. It smelled of polished wood and untouched loneliness. The weight of its emptiness pressed on him as he carried her inside. But then, the quiet shifted. Her fingers brushed his hand, and heat melted the chill between them. Mia, her name came out in a whisper, had a secret nobody knew. She could feel things, deep down, tangled feelings that bled from others like invisible scars. That strange gift marked her, made her a target for her stepmother's greed. A cruel woman who had dumped her here, on this empty road, like cast-off trash. As Julian sat beside her, watching the shadows pool beneath the tall windows, he realized their worlds weren't that different. Both alone, hiding scars that burned just beneath the surface. But tonight, this fragile silence between them promised something new, something real. Then, almost like a crack in the air, a whisper reached Julian's mind. A name, a fortune, a lineage, tangled up in Mia's very blood and his own. A secret so explosive it could bring ruin crashing down on them both. Danger was coming. Her stepmother wouldn't just give her up. Not without a fight. Mia looked up. A tremble ran through her small frame. She'd never trusted anyone. But now, in Julian's eyes, she saw something she'd never had. A chance at a real family. And just when hope sparked, a sharp knock shattered the silence, echoing through the vast halls like a gunshot. Julian's jaw tightened. Mia's hands clenched, her eyes searching his. The door creaked open slowly. Who was there? And did they know the truth hiding beneath the fragile walls of that grand mansion? Whatever came next, it was going to change everything. Hey, before you continue with this incredible story, I have an important warning for you. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content. And while you're there, leave that powerful like. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love meeting all the amazing people who are part of this community. Your participation makes a difference. Let's interact. Julian's heart thundered as the door creaked open. The chilling air thickened, drawing both him and Mia into its suffocating grip. He turned, fully expecting to see someone, maybe a stranger from the community, even the local sheriff, needing to. But what met his eyes made the blood drain from his face. Standing there was a woman clothed in rich furs, her eyes as cold as winter ice. It was Evelyn, Mia's stepmother. A twist of horror made Julian's stomach sink, just as Mia's small frame shuddered next to him. He felt the fear radiate off her, electric and raw. Mia. Evelyn's voice sang like a viper, sweet yet deadly. Did you think you could hide, you poor thing? The sarcasm dripped from her words as she took a step forward, her gaze flicking over Julian. And who might this new toy be? A knight in shining armor, coming to rescue the lost lamb? What do you want? Julian forced out, fighting against the trembling dread creeping up his spine. He felt Mia tense against him, her breath quickening. Evelyn smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You should know, I'm always watching. And that little girl? She gestured toward Mia, who shrank into Julian, terrified. She's not as innocent as she seems. Suddenly, just when Julian thought the moment couldn't grow any darker, Evelyn pulled out a small, shimmering pendant from beneath her furs. It shone like a beacon, and Julian's blood ran cold at the sight. It mirrored the one Mia had been clutching earlier, a family heirloom, wrapped in secrets and power. What is that? Julian asked, his voice steadier than he felt. Evelyn's smile widened. Oh, you don't know? This bauble connects everything. Mia's existence, your family's legacy. It comes with a price, Julian, and it's time Mia learned that price. Mia gasped, her voice trembling. You can't take it, Evelyn. It's... Evelyn cut her off, lifting a finger. Silence. Sweetheart, you've been a burden, a tool for power I never wanted in my life. Her eyes narrowed, and suddenly the air thickened with a tension unlike anything Julian had ever felt. Then, with a flick of her wrist, the pendant began to glow ominously. The light pulsed, and a rush of memory. Mia, he whispered, the realization crashing into him like a tidal wave. You're not just some lost girl. You... Before he could finish, the glow exploded. The room burst with blinding light, warming and freezing all at once, slicing through his thoughts. The wind howled, swirling debris and echoes of chaos, before everything went black. When the dust settled, Julian blinked against the sudden darkness, his heart racing. He felt a heavy weight in his chest, and beside him, Mia was gone. Panic shot through him. Mia! He shouted, voice echoing into the shadows. Then from somewhere deeper in the house, he heard a cry. Not a scream of fear, but a sound of awakening. As he stumbled toward it, uncertainty gnawed at him. What had just happened, and where was Mia? The secrets he'd thought he understood were only beginning to unravel, and danger was lurking just inches away. Julian's heart raced as he stumbled through the dim house, calling out for Mia, his voice echoing in the eerie silence. Panic gripped him, squeezing his chest as he moved further into the shadowy corridor. The air around him felt thick, like an unseen force was weighing him down. "Mia!" he shouted again, desperation spilling from his lips. The darkness answered with a haunting stillness. He pressed on, hands brushing against the cold walls, searching for any sign of her. The soft cry he heard before still lingered in his mind, pulling him forward. But then, all at once, the darkness shifted. A soft glow began to pulse from the direction of the dining room, drawing him closer. It flickered like a heartbeat, full of life, filling the shadows with a warm light. Julian's chest tightened with hope. That could only be Mia, somehow finding her way back to him. As he rounded the corner, the sight that greeted him froze him in place. The room was filled with swirling lights, like shimmering stars dancing in a void. But in the center was not just Mia. She stood, but she was different. The pendant that Evelyn had wielded now hung around her neck, glowing fiercely. "Mia?" Julian breathed, his voice a mixture of wonder and dread. Her eyes shone with an intensity he'd never seen before. They were wild yet focused, filled with an ethereal energy that sent a thrill through him. She looked less like a scared little girl and more like someone who had found a hidden strength. "Julian," Mia started, but her voice was drowned by a low hum filling the room. "I can feel it. I have to show you." But just as the words left her mouth, the glow intensified into a blinding flash. For an instant, everything went white. The humming crescendoed, merging with a wild rush of wind that swirled around them like a cyclone. When the light faded, Julian found himself not in the dining room anymore. The two of them stood in a vast, empty field under a dark sky spattered with stars. Confusion washed over him like ice water. What just happened? Mia's expression shifted, a strange mix of fear and empowerment crossing her face. "It's the pendant! It's a door, Julian! A door to—" Suddenly, a figure appeared in the distance, a silhouette against the starry sky, approaching fast. As the figure drew nearer, Julian's stomach twisted in recognition. It was Evelyn, but she didn't look the same. Her previously cold demeanor cracked, revealing something more chaotic, more powerful. "Mia!" Evelyn's voice resonated, filled with a manic energy. "You think you can escape me? You have no idea what you're capable of." Julian's heart raced again, but this time it was with a sense of urgency. "Mia, we need to—" But as he turned to grab her hand, the world shifted again. The ground beneath them trembled, and the stars flickered like candles in a storm. Mia's eyes widened as she clutched the pendant tightly, and the swirling energy around them grew heavier. "Julian," she shouted, terror lacing her voice, "I think I've unleashed something." Then, out of nowhere, a crack in the sky opened like a wound. Colors surged and poured through it, greens, blues, reds, all swirling into a vortex of chaos. As they stared in horror, the reality around them began to unravel like a fraying rope. "Mia, hold on to me!" Julian yelled, reaching for her as the light pulled them apart. But just as his fingers brushed against hers, Mia's expression shifted. "I am not just a girl anymore," she whispered, her voice both familiar and foreign. Suddenly, her features morphed. Her eyes sparkled with an ancient wisdom that made Julian's breath hitch. "I am so much more." Everything came crashing in on itself. The light, the noise, Evelyn's sharpened eyes, all fading to a deafening silence as the sky swallowed them whole. What had he just witnessed? And who was Mia really? Everything he thought he knew was unraveling. The only thing left was the looming question. What had they all awakened? As the blinding light faded, Julian stood frozen in disbelief. The swirling chaos around them, mixed with the vast, starry sky, did nothing to calm the racing in his heart. He locked his eyes on Mia, who no longer seemed like the fragile girl he had picked up from the side of the road. She had transformed into something powerful, something almost unrecognizable. "Mia," he called again, but his voice was shaky. The darkness felt thicker now, a physical presence closing in around them. "Mia." Evelyn's voice cut through the tension like a knife, urgent and filled with fury. "You think you can escape me? You have no idea what you're capable of." As Evelyn advanced, the air crackled with an electric energy that sent shivers down Julian's spine. Something primal spoke inside him. "Run!" But his feet felt rooted to the ground. "Mia!" he shouted, desperate. "We have to get out of here!" But Mia's gaze was fixed on Evelyn, a fierce determination igniting in her eyes. "No," she whispered, a tremor running through her frame. "You don't understand." Mia squeezed the pendant, and the glow pulsed brighter. The air around them shimmered with raw energy, blurring the line between reality and something otherworldly. Julian felt a knot of fear in his throat, a racing pulse in his temples. Then it happened. A sound like thunder rippled across the sky. The ground shook violently, like the world itself was tearing apart. Both Julian and Mia stumbled, struggling to stay upright as energy surged around them. The stars twisted and swirled above, becoming dark, swirling clouds. "Mia, what's happening?" Julian yelled, panic creeping into his voice. "I have to," she started, but Evelyn's laughter cut through her words. It was chilling, filled with dark delight. "Oh, but how sweet it is!" "You don't know, do you?" Evelyn laughed again, her voice echoing off the stars. "The pendant was never about you, Mia. It's about what you inherit." In a flash, Evelyn raised her hand, and the pendant screamed with light, brighter than before. The force knocked Julian back, and he fell to the ground. Desperation clawed at him as he fought to focus on Mia. But when he looked up, everything changed. Mia's expression shifted, her face contorting, features twisting like clay in a sculptor's hands. "No!" Julian gasped, his heart pounding. "Mia!" In that moment, a deep, resonating voice emerged from her lips, one that didn't sound like her at all. "I am not just a girl," the voice thundered, powerful and ancient. "I am the keeper of this power. I am the last heir of the Cernunnos line." A shockwave reverberated through Julian's body, paralyzing him. The Cernunnos line? The legends whispered of their unmatched power, of a bloodline entwined with untamed magic. The truth crashed into Julian with a force that stole his breath. Mia was not who she thought she was. She was something far more dangerous, far more significant. Mia's eyes were now ablaze, swirling with an otherworldly light. "And you," she said, not looking at Julian, but straight through him. "You are the last link to the Sinclair legacy." Julian's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" he croaked, words thick in his throat. "Oh, you don't understand." But Mia didn't reply. The shimmering energy enveloped her, pulling her deeper into the darkness. And Evelyn, with her eyes ablaze, reached forward, her cruel smile widening. "You've awakened her true nature," Evelyn hissed, her voice dripping with malice. "Now the battle begins, and you, Julian, you are the key." His heart raced, the cold fear settling in his bones. Behind him, the portal opened wider, a swirling vortex of light and shadow. "Mia!" he shouted one last time, but all he heard was the echo of his panic. Then the darkness swallowed him whole. Where had Mia gone? And what had she become? The secrets were only beginning to unravel, and with that opening, everything Julian thought he knew about love, family, and loyalty crumbled. What lay ahead would test them both. Would he stand beside her? Or was there something even darker, lurking in the shadows, waiting? As the darkness swallowed Julian whole, panic wrapped around him like a vice. "Mia!" he shouted, desperation replacing his earlier confusion. But the only reply was the echo of his own voice, bouncing off the walls of an empty, shadowy void. He felt alone, unmoored in a world that had suddenly turned upside down. Then, as if summoned by his fear, the space around him began to shift. The swirling void flickered, tearing at the edges like fraying fabric. It pulled apart, revealing glimpses of another world, a realm laden with golden fields and skies painted in shades of twilight. Suddenly, Julian was standing there, facing a broad horizon lit by a sickly glow. But Mia was gone. Where had she gone? This fear felt like a punch in the gut. "Mia!" he barked again, righteous anger igniting in him. Each moment stretched painfully as the quiet settled over the landscape. Just as he turned, ready to confront this reality-altering power that had ripped them apart, the ground trembled beneath his feet, like an angry taut string threatened to snap. Out of the flickering shadows stepped a figure, barely discernible at first. A silhouette materialized, regal yet dark, moving forward with purpose. Julian squinted against the glow, recognizing the ominous presence. "It can't be," he whispered, horrified. And then she stepped into the light. Evelyn, but she was not the cold woman he had encountered moments ago. Her eyes glinted with a fierce light, illuminated by some otherworldly power. "I found you, Julian," she breathed, voice low and smooth, curling around him like smoke. "I knew you'd be here." His heart raced. Dread crawled up his spine like icy fingers. "What do you want from me?" But before she could respond, the ground erupted. A churning rift opened beside them, raw energy spilling forth like a flood. Julian stumbled back, alarm spreading through him. "Mia!" he screamed, panic clawing at his throat. "All of this is connected!" Evelyn's laugh echoed, dark and twisted. "You've stirred things up you can't possibly comprehend." He felt dizzy, caught between worlds. And then he saw her, a flash of light cutting through the chaos. "Mia! Mia!" he croaked, stretching out his hand. But before he could reach her, a surge of energy shot across the space, jolting him to his core. Suddenly, everything went dark. When the light flickered back on, Julian was no longer alone. He was surrounded by shadows, figures emerging from the dark like ghosts. Countless people, their faces familiar yet distorted. Cries ripped through the air. Then a voice rang out, clear as a bell. "Stop!" It was Mia, but she was different. She stood tall, her eyes blazing with a power Julian had never witnessed. "You have to listen! We can't let her control us!" But alongside her stood another figure that made Julian's heart drop, his father. "No, it can't be," he stammered, shock coursing through him. What was happening? "Mia!" he gasped, his gaze darting between them. "What is this?" The revelation hit him like a freight train. "I'm sorry." Mia's expression twisted, anguish flickering across her features. "I didn't know. I thought I could protect us." "I thought you were just a girl." His father's voice shook, disappointment steeped in every word. "But now you've awakened everything." Everything in Julian shattered. The reality he clung to splintered like glass underfoot. "What do you mean?" he demanded, panic rising. "I'm connected to it all," she confessed, her grip tightening on the pendant. "The legacy, it lives through me, and your family's path is entwined with mine." But just then, an unexpected wind howled, and Evelyn's laughter echoed, deliciously victorious. "Everything you thought you knew, Julian, is about to come crashing down. Family doesn't mean what you think, not anymore." And with that, a blinding light erupted again, swallowing them all whole. Julian's heart raced, fear and confusion clawing at him. What had Mia done? What was this legacy? And as the light enveloped him, the last thing he remembered was a single thought echoing in the chaos. Who could he trust now? As the light enveloped Julian, a feeling of weightlessness consumed him. He was torn apart, and then everything snapped back into focus. Breathing heavily, he stood in another kind of darkness. The swirling chaos when he last saw Mia faded, replaced now by a thick fog that blurred the edges of his vision. "Mia!" he cried, but the voice felt like it belonged to someone else. Where was she? Panic clawed at him, filling his chest with dread that felt like an icy hand gripping his heart. Then came the whisper, soft, shimmering like moonlight. "Julian." He turned, recognizing that voice, a voice that echoed with familiarity and yet felt foreign. Warmth washed over him as he spun around, hope flickering like a dying flame. And then, from the smoky shadows, a figure emerged. "Mia!" he shouted again. But that's when he saw it, when he saw her. The girl that stepped forward was not the same girl he had saved from the roadside. Gone was her innocence. The pendant hung from her neck, glowing fiercely, illuminating her face. But something vital was missing. Her expression was fierce yet distant, like she stood on the edge of comprehension, but couldn't quite grasp it. "Let go of the past," she boomed, her voice echoing with an unfamiliar strength. It rattled him to the core. "You must understand." "Understand what?" Julian felt the ground beneath him tremble, confusion mixing with terror. "Mia, please. I'm not just a girl. I'm part of something bigger, something you can't begin to fathom." Her form flickered, another layer peeling away to reveal what lay beneath. An older version of herself, a fierceness mingled with wisdom, shadowed by something darker. Julian's breath hitched. "Mia, stop! You're scaring me!" But she stepped closer, her eyes locking onto his, the glow of the pendant casting strange patterns across her skin. "It's not just me. It's what I've awakened. It's what lives within you too." Then everything shifted again, the fog spiraling into a whirlpool. A loud crash shattered the silence, and Julian instinctively shielded himself. The world around him splintered, the air thickening with a strange energy, twisting his perception of reality. "Mia!" he shouted above the chaos as the shadows formed into shapes. And suddenly, from within the chaos, Julian's father appeared. Not just the father he remembered. The sense of familiarity twisted into something ominous. "Julian, it's time you know the truth." "What truth?" Julian's stomach plummeted, words heavy and loaded. "All this time," his father's voice trembled, "I've hidden it from you, thinking it was for your protection." Before he could grasp his father's intentions, everything pulsated. A bright flash tore open the fog, revealing the room where they first crossed paths with Evelyn. Julian stumbled, realizing they were no longer alone. Emerging from the shadows were people from his past, faces long forgotten, yet burned into his memory. Friends, family, each one stared back at him with eyes filled with disappointment. His heart raced, the tension slicing through the air as if it were alive. "What is this?" he yelled, looking to Mia for answers, needing her to bridge the chasm that yawned between him and the truth. "It's not just you who matters. It's bloodlines colliding, destinies intertwined." Then, without warning, the world erupted in an all-consuming light, and in it, Julian saw visions. His mother hiding her secrets, his father grasping at power, and a young Mia standing in the shadows, whispering the words of an ancient spell. And just like that, he understood. The truth twisted within him like a knife. He was much more than just Julian Sinclair. He was intertwined with the very fabric of their shared destiny. But before he could process what it meant, the light dimmed. The familiar tug of darkness wrapped around him again. "No!" he shouted, desperation clawing at him. "Mia!" But instead of her answer, an echo whispered through the void. "Do you truly wish to know, or would you rather stay blind?" And with that, the shadow's grasp tightened, leaving him hanging between the weight of fate and the paradox of choice. What had he awakened? Who was he supposed to be? The questions trailed off into silence, leaving a chilling uncertainty that draped heavily around him. As the shadow's grasp tightened around Julian, the air grew thick with an unbearable tension. He felt trapped, caught in a world spinning wildly out of control. The swirling fog muffled the sounds around him, his heart racing in the suffocating silence. Just a moment ago, he had clung to the hope of rescuing Mia. Now, he was adrift in uncertainty. "Mia!" he shouted again, desperation unfurling in his chest. "Please, where are you?" But there was only stillness, an echo of his own voice that rang hollow around him. Suddenly, a rush of wind swept through, breaking the oppressive silence. It stirred the fog, revealing shapes dancing around him. Shadows morphed into familiar faces, people he thought were long gone. Their expressions reflected sorrow, fear, and confusion. His pulse quickened. Why were they all here? "Julian," a soft voice cut through the chaos. It was his mother. Her brow furrowed, fear etched into her features. "You shouldn't be here." "What is happening?" he cried, eyes darting between each anguished face. "Why are you all here? What are you trying to warn me about?" But before anyone could answer, the ground heaved beneath him. Cracks opened wide like hungry mouths, and a brilliant light spilled from within the fissures. It illuminated everything. The faces of those he loved and lost. The swirling fog. the tendrils of darkness reaching for him like grasping hands. "Mia!" He reached out, trying to find her amidst the chaos. But just as his fingers brushed against the edge of the light, it exploded outward, throwing him back. When Julian regained his footing, he staggered to his feet, gasping. The dark space transformed before his eyes. He was no longer surrounded by familiar faces, but instead was thrust into a vast emptiness where challenge and separation gripped his heart. "Mia!" he shouted again, voice trembling. "Please, you have to come back." "Julian!" But this time it wasn't just a plea. It was his father's voice, twisted in a way that sent ice through his veins. "Stop. You don't understand. It's all connected. Everything leads back to you." His chest squeezed painfully, the weight of truth pressing down. "What do you mean? It's about Mia. You're in danger." "You think she's the key?" Julian's father stepped forward, shadows playing across his features. "No, Julian. The real danger lies within you." Julian's heart sank. "What are you talking about?" "Mia's gift is powerful," his father continued, urgency lacing his tone. "But it's your blood that holds the secret, the darkness that can be unleashed. You're the one who—" Before he could finish, a flash filled the air, like a dagger slicing through the night. Julian turned, squinting against the brightness. And there, emerging from the glow, was Mia. But she was different. The pendant pulsed as if alive, drowning Julian in its blinding light. "Mia!" he gasped, breathless at the sight. "Julian!" She reached toward him, but something shifted behind her. A dark shadow emerged, twisting and writhing, and it was Evelyn. Her laughter echoed in the air, a chilling sound that knifed through Julian's hope. "Mia, don't listen to him!" Evelyn's voice rang with manic energy. "He doesn't understand what he's awakened." And then, everything shifted again. Without warning, the light flickered, revealing a shocking sight. Mia's face transformed. The confident girl he had fought for twisted in agony, and with a final, haunting scream, she writhed painfully. "No, Mia!" Julian lunged forward, trying to reach her, but an unseen force pushed him back. "Mia, fight it!" he shouted, panic rising as he watched her struggle. "Don't let her win." "Mia!" The shriek shattered his heart, echoing in his mind. Her face twisted in pain, and suddenly she stopped, her eyes rolling back. The pendant around her neck exploded into a blinding light, illuminating Julian's father. "No!" he screamed, lunging forward as her scream echoed, more like a cry for help. And then silence fell. Julian's breathing slowed, dread creeping up his spine as he realized the truth emerging from the wreckage. The pendant had merged their destinies, but at what cost? The truth, the shocking truth, stormed through him. "Mia," he whispered, tears stinging his eyes. "What did you unleash?" And then it hit him, hard, like a brick. She was never only Mia. She was an echo of a power meant to revert his family's dark legacy. Before he could speak, the shadows enveloped them all, an ominous wave of darkness overshadowing every flickering light. The last thing he heard was Evelyn's voice, murmuring a word that hung in the air, heavy with consequence. Destruction. And with that, he stood frozen in the dimness, horrified by the reality that was now crashing down around him. What had mattered most, the family bloodlines, the choice they made, how could it lead to this unforeseen horror? The darkness pulled him further, leaving him questioning everything he thought he had known. As the darkness enveloped Julian, dread coiled tightly around his heart. The last remnants of light faded to a shadowy abyss, and Evelyn's chilling voice echoed in his ears. "Destruction is upon us," she had whispered, and every inch of him ached with fear. Then, suddenly, the shadows twisted and deepened, throbbing like a living thing. A pulse ran through the. Just as his breath quickened, something shifted dramatically. A blinding light erupted, tearing through the darkness. The shadows refracted like shattered glass. With a deafening crack, the air split, and from it poured a flood of brilliance that swallowed everyone whole. Surrounded by this overwhelming radiance, Julian felt himself being pulled as if through a tunnel, gravity warping around him. In the blink of an eye, he found himself standing alone in a vast, empty room. Polished marble floors stretched out beneath him, glistening in the harsh light of massive chandeliers hanging from lofty ceilings. Disoriented, he blinked, frantically searching for Mia, Evelyn, anyone. And then he saw her. Mia stood at the far end of the room, but she was different, stronger somehow, radiating an energy that felt both mesmerizing and threatening. "Julian, you need to listen," she shouted, urgency dripping from her tone. "Mia!" He rushed toward her, heart pounding, desperate for her to be safe, to be the girl he had rescued. But her eyes flickered with an intensity he barely recognized. "You don't understand." In that moment, everything changed again. A flash of silver glinted from her grasp. A knife. A long, curving blade that sparkled ominously. "What are you doing with that?" "I have to end this. I have to end her," Mia screamed, as if the weight of the world was resting on her small shoulders. Julian felt the ground beneath him tremble, as if the room itself shuddered at her revelation. He stalled, not knowing how to respond. "And who?" And then it hit him like a crushing wave. "Mia, you don't mean Evelyn?" She nodded, determination shining through the fear. "She's been lying to us, Julian, all along. I have to stop her." "Wait!" Panic surged through him, clenching his throat tighter. "What are we doing? We can't just—" But before he could finish, an explosion rocked the room. The air crackled, the space shattering into a whirlwind of sound and fury. A force propelled Julian backward, slamming him against the wall. When he looked up, there she was, Evelyn, but transformed. She wore fury like a cloak, eyes aglow with a wild chaos. "You think you can destroy me?" Her voice sliced through the din, confident and powerful. "You don't know the secrets of your own blood." Shock coursed through Julian like ice. He stared at Mia, who had taken a step back, her grip wavering on the knife. "What did she mean by that?" he whispered, fear creeping up his spine. Evelyn snickered, dark amusement laced in her voice. "Oh, you both have so much to learn." And then it happened. The knife flickered in Mia's hand, and before anyone could blink, she plunged it into the ground. The blade echoed against the floor, and a shockwave tore through the room, radiating with a fierce energy. The walls twisted, revealing hidden passages, crumbling under the weight of unspoken truths. As the dust settled, secrets unfurled. Faces appeared, Julian's mother, his father, and so many others, all intertwined in a web of deception. They surrounded Mia, appearing through the shadows, whispering words that sliced through Julian's sanity. "Enough!" Julian shouted. Fists clenched, but it was as if no one could hear him. Just as he considered charging forward, chaos erupted. A blinding flash enveloped everything, the dagger glowing fiercely. "They were never gone, Julian," Mia's voice echoed in his mind. "We're all part of this." Before he could grasp what she meant, the darkness receded, and above them, hovering amidst the ruins, was a reflection of himself, a twisted version wearing the same familiar features, but soulless, chilling. "Who are you?" Julian stammered, stepping back in shock. "Your true self, Julian, the part of you you've tried to bury," the doppelganger sneered. "Face it, you're not who you think you are." As Julian's world crumbled around him, he felt every thread of reality loosen. The blade shimmered, revealing a light within the darkness. "Face the truth," it demanded, and like a wildfire, everything erupted in chaos again, leaving Julian clutching his head, drowning in the mystery of who he had become, and more importantly, who he would choose to be. What lay ahead? The shadows whispered promises and fears, doubts circling as he stood at a crossroads, teetering between light and darkness. He had to know. Julian stood frozen, his breath caught in his throat, as the darkness began to pulse around him, the shape of his doppelganger looming large. Everything felt heavy, suffocating. The shadows felt alive, and he could sense the distorted version of himself as a ghost clawing at his mind. "What do you want from me?" he managed to choke out, desperation creeping through his words. "Truth," the figure replied, a sinister smile spreading across its face. "You can't run from who you are." Just as Julian moved to respond, the ground trembled again, shaking him from the moment. He could sense a shift, an electric current sparking in the air. Then there was a flash. A blinding beam of light burst forth from the dagger Mia had plunged into the ground, filling the room with a searing luminescence. "Mia!" Julian shouted, but his voice was drowned by an overwhelming rush of energy. The light swirled and twisted like a living entity, and as quickly as it appeared, it began to condense into a single point. With a deafening crack, it imploded, leaving behind a scene that made Julian's heart drop into his stomach. Standing in the center of the room, Mia's eyes were wide with shock. But this time, it wasn't just determination radiating from her. It was something deeper, darker. "What did you do?" Julian's voice cracked, panic setting in. She looked at him, horror reflected in her gaze. I didn't mean to." Suddenly, Mia fell to her knees, clutching her head as if trying to suppress an unseen force. "It's taking over," she gasped, panic spilling into her words. Julian felt the air shift again, a wave of energy crashing over him like a surfacing tide. Tiny pulses of light crackled around the room. Out of the chaos, Evelyn grinned, eyes glinting with vicious delight. "You truly thought you could stop this?" And then came the twist, the unexpected crescendo that shattered everything. Mia raised her head, tears streaming down her cheeks, and Julian felt a gnawing dread. "Julian, I am..." Her voice faltered, twisting in the throes of revelation. "Mia, don't!" he yelled, fear clawing at his heart. But it was too late. The light from the pendant pulsed violently, casting shadows that contorted and twisted. From it, a dark figure surged upwards, forcefully tearing through the air. "I am not just the heir of the Cernunnos line," Mia's voice echoed. But it wasn't just her. It was layered, combined with something darker, foreboding. I am its harbinger. Julian's mind reeled. What? No, this isn't happening. Evelyn laughed, her tone deeply satisfied. Yes, she is the one destined to wield this power. Suddenly, the shadows converged, wrapping around Mia, suffocating her as the energy surged wildly. Julian felt it then, a harrowing truth unraveling in his mind. The darkness around them was no ordinary shadow. It was alive, sentient, and it was entwined in Mia. Mia, fight it, he shouted, taking a step forward. But the figure that was Mia rose, energy coursing through her in a terrifying rush. I can't. Julian, help me. The moments stretched on, her eyes shimmering with something unrecognizable. Mia, he cried again, desperation brewing with urgency. As the energy whipped violently around them, a pulse echoed through Julian's body. The shadows roared, and with a wave of power, the very foundation of the room trembled. Your choice, Julian, Evelyn screamed, a maniacal gleam in her gaze. Join her or lose everything. Before he could think, a wave of darkness surged forward, engulfing everything. In that moment, a blinding light erupted from Mia, its glow immeasurable, forcing the shadows back. But instead of vanquishing them, something twisted in the air, curling around his heart. Mia, no, he screamed, uncertainty flooding his veins. In the smoky aftermath, the glow dulled, revealing a chilling truth. Mia was no longer just herself. She was something else entirely. Her face shifting, confidence now tinged with an ancient malevolence. Julian, she rasped, laughter mingling with pain. It's time for you to see what I can truly do. And as the shadows began to swirl around her again, he realized with horror that nothing would be the same. The very fabric of what he thought he knew was about to tear apart. What had Mia unleashed? What did it mean for them both? A pulse of dread filled the space as Julian stood at the brink, teetering on the edge of his own revelation. Would he stand with her or against her? And what consequences would follow? Mia! Julian screamed, heart pounding as the darkness writhed around them. He could barely comprehend the chaotic scene unfolding. The energy surged, and Mia faced the terrible shadows with a newfound strength. A fierce determination that both terrified and amazed him. Mia, please, he pleaded, desperate to reach her. You don't have to do this. But her gaze was intense, filled with a light that didn't seem to belong to her anymore. I have to end this, Julian, she shouted, hoisting the dagger with shaky hands. I can't let her control me. Evelyn's laughter echoed off the walls, dripping with malice. You think a knife can stop what is meant to be? You're just a girl lost in the darkness. In that moment, time slowed, and the shadows encircled Mia, suffocating the light in a menacing embrace. Julian could feel the weight of despair settling in his chest as he fought against the urge to look away. No, he yelled, his voice cracking as he lunged toward her. You're stronger than this. The shards of light flickered around them, momentarily illuminating Mia's panicked face. She stood tall against the encroaching darkness. Something fierce, primal, locked within her. You don't understand, Julian, she shouted, determination echoing in her voice. I am more than just a girl. I am the last of the Cernunnos line. His heart sank as realization crashed through him like a wave. Mia, he breathed, taking another step forward, inching closer to her. "You don't know what you're capable of. Mia, release it." A shadowy figure, Julian's father, urged from the background. "You can harness the power without letting it consume you." Evelyn's eyes burned like coal. "Foolish child, you think this will end well? You are bound by your blood." "No!" Julian cried, shaking his head, fear threading through his chest. "She's not bound to anything. She is—" But just then, the dagger pulsed with radiant light, illuminating Mia's features. "Julian," she called, and in that moment, their eyes locked, a bond electric with understanding and love. "You have to believe in me." And just like that, the energy shifted. The shadows recoiled, and Mia held the dagger steady, summoning every ounce of her strength. "I choose to fight," she shouted, voice unwavering, ringing out as the pendant around her neck blazed with brilliance. A shockwave erupted from the dagger, splintering the shadows and forcing Evelyn back. "No!" the older woman shrieked, anger rippling through her as the brilliance swallowed her whole, dissolving her into the dark. The room brightened, the oppressive shadows lifting. Julian dashed to Mia, clutching her shoulders. "You did it! You chose to fight." Tears filled his eyes as he pulled her into an embrace, relief washing over him like a wave. But there was more to the battle. The truth lingered in the air between them like a fragile secret. "Mia, what now?" he asked, voice trembling. The weight of their legacy hung heavy. "I don't know," she whispered, her eyes wide with uncertainty. Everything has changed. Suddenly, the world around them began to shimmer, reality bending. Faces of their past flickered, intertwining like fleeting memories. They were not alone. Their families surrounded them. Smiles mingled with worry, love battling fear. "Mia," Julian murmured, warmth flooding him. "We can build something new, together." As the light enveloped them both, he felt a surge of hope and determination. They had always been more than their pasts. They could forge a new path, one filled with light, warmth, and family. But then silence fell, heavy and profound. A shadow flickered, an echo of Evelyn lingering, just beyond the boundary of the light. "You think this is over? The end of a legacy?" her mocking voice whispered. "Mia." Julian gripped her hand, fear creeping in again. Mia's expression softened, strength restoring in her eyes. "No more fear, Julian. Together, we'll face whatever comes next." As the brilliance grew brighter, enveloping them in warmth, a single question hung in the air, charged with possibilities and uncharted paths. What awaited them in this new dawn? And with that, the scene faded to black, leaving an ache in their hearts and an unspoken truth on their lips. You must subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Click the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to know how it all ends. Don't wait another second to share this. It's time to show your support.